So thanks everybody for joining me today, whether you're joining on the live version or the replay. I'm really excited to have this office hours with you and share a little bit about my special sauce. And hopefully you can walk away from this call with some really tangible next steps and value. So the way the call is going to be structured today, so we're calling this Branding Secrets, how to build a brand that's built to last. And so what you're going to learn on this call is I'm going to reveal 4 key secrets that every business owner, founder needs to know to create an impact for a high visibility brand. And these are things that a lot of people aren't doing, surprisingly. And I even see larger companies like misstep on these. So just kind of a little like housekeeping, as I mentioned, if you're still joining, pop into the chat on the side and just let us know your name and kind of what you're working on or your company, so we have a general sense of who's on the live call. And then the other thing is, if you have a sheet of paper and pen in front of you, if you can create like a list on the whole sheet of 4 places, you can kind of outline the myths. And the goal is that you'll be able to use kind of this worksheet to apply to your business after the call. So I'm all about direct impact and tangibility today. So without further ado, also before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about me. Some of you I do know, and we've connected offline in the group, and some of you I feel like I'm just meeting today. But just to give you a little bit of sense of like, who am I and why you should listen to me? So my background is in marketing and brand strategy. I've worked for 2 Amex-backed start companies in luxury travel, e-commerce, and partnerships. So I've built revenue strategy and customer experience programs for the past 10 years. And coming from luxury hospitality, this really shines through my process-driven approach. So I'm all about the creative conceptualization and the operational optimization. So I've worked with some pretty cool startup brands that have lived within the Amex family. So it's kind of the nice mix between corporate structure and the freedom of startup life and kind of choosing your own adventure. So I was born and raised in Denver, and then I lived in New York for a few years, and now I'm out in Los Angeles. So kind of get the best of both coasts, but I do kind of miss the pace sometimes of the New York life. So that's a little bit about me. So today, as I mentioned, I'm going to be revealing to you the 4 secrets of building a killer brand and how you can apply those to your business. And then from there, I'm going to walk you through this exact 3-step method that I've created that will help you attract your perfect customer. And so you're going to see why a lot of businesses don't attract the customers that they love, but they get customers that they settle for. The people who are actually buying and converting isn't always who they really want to be doing business with. And why potentially your brand might be attracting the wrong type of customer. So by the time you're done, I'm hoping that you'll have some exact key steps of things that you can audit or fix or change, or even quickly implement within your business that will create impact. So some of the questions and things Hannah shared with me anonymously, but I was able to get a sense in your intake forms of really what you were looking to find out from the call. And I got a lot of people were like, well, I'm not sure really where to get started, or I have some organic momentum, but I'm not really sure we have like a clear strategy. Why does branding matter? I'm not sure I have a budget for it. Where can I invest to see biggest impact in revenue growth? How to effectively like benchmark or differentiate. So those are kind of some of the general themes that popped out from your intake form. So I'm hoping that we'll really focus there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through kind of these 3 myths and then the secrets of how to flip it on its head and actually change that path. And then walk you through my 3-step methodology, the STRUC method, and how to solve for these. And then I'll open up for questions at the end. If you do have questions that come up that you feel like you might forget, please feel free to pop them into the chat. I may not address them until the end, but we'll kind of just see how it flows. So maybe as we go through the myths, if people have specific questions, I can answer those and read them out loud to people in the chat. But I think that's how it'll go. So let's get started. So the power of brand. So myth number one that I see, and these are ones that I've collected through my years of being a consultant. I guess I buried the lead here of what I actually do now. So I run a strategy and marketing consultancy called STRUC, where we help growth stage consumer-facing brands build brand positioning and marketing strategy. So really what that means is I work with pretty early stage companies, pre-Series A, but I have worked with larger organizations to build brand positioning. So who you are, what problem are you solving, how you fit into the market, and marketing programs is how you're going to actually tell people and attract customers. And so these are myths that I found and objections when I get on calls with potential clients or current clients, and they're really struggling with where to go next and what to do. So the first myth is that I don't have time or money for planning. I just need to be doing. I don't have the luxury to sit around with the fancy consultant and a whiteboard and figure this stuff out. Like, I have limited runway, I'm bootstrapped, I have investors that are breathing down my neck, I have myself to support or a family to provide for. So this is the first one that comes up a lot. And the secret actually here is that planning is actually going to save you time and money in the long run. I cannot stress this enough. Planning is essential to your success. You can be agile, you can be efficient, you can be price conscious, but you really don't want to build that plane while flying it. And what I have found is I have clients who will have a conversation and they'll say, great, this sounds awesome. I need to do X, Y, and Z now. I don't have time for you. Let's plan for something later. And then they end up coming back and saying, oh man, and they wasted kind of more time and money redoing things when we do end up actually working together, and they look back and they're like, wow, that 6 months was kind of like wasted, where I was sort of running around with my head cut off and thinking that everything was needed. And I really see this a lot in startup life. I mean, as many of you probably have experienced, you know, the startup world is very that masculine energy. It doesn't mean that it's male dominated, although a lot of it is, right? But it's that masculine energy of this sort of like strong, robust, fail forward, fail fast, break everything, burn through a bunch of cash, figure it out later kind of mentality. And what I've seen, which is really beautiful, being adopted in business, and not only just with women founders, but just like a different energy, because I do know male founders who are specifically trying to cultivate this, is they're like, we want to do it the right way. We can be fast, we can be efficient, we can take risks. We don't have to do analysis paralysis and spend 6 months trying to figure out what to do next and inch forward. That's not what we mean. But the brand planning phase is going to be the number one. So coming in just with a thoughtful approach of figuring out, okay, who are we? What do we want to do? How do we want to get there? Let's figure it out and then execute. You can still be really efficient. So that's number one. And this is really how you can effectively benchmark and differentiate yourself versus your competitors, is having a real brand strategy. And I'll get into more of the definition of brand strategy too, because I think there's some misconceptions of what that means. Myth number two, a brand is about what you see, that branding is external. So I think a lot of us think like branding is cute packaging, it's a fun logo, it's that visual identity, right? It's the look and feel of who you are. And the secret is that branding is actually an inside out process. So you can't build a brand without three key things that I see. And this is the crux of the brand strategy. Number one, the key problem that you're solving. So what is the pain point to your customers that you're like, I have the solution? You know, you're the panacea, you are the only option. Now, some of you might be like, well, we're not like it's not really a problem. But if you look at it that way and you approach it, every service product is solving a problem. So like, for instance, like Catherine, like she's like, well, I sell marshmallows and it's fun and it's a treat and it's a dessert, but like, is that really like a problem? Well, if you look at it that somebody wants a sweet treat and they're going to go get something, why should someone come to you over a different dessert provider or maybe another marshmallow company? And so if you look at it like you are providing a solution, you'll start to dive deeper into some of the pieces of that strategy. So like, what's your key differentiators? Maybe it's a certain service, maybe it's a product feature, Maybe it's a delivery method. Maybe it's the accessibility of the way that you deliver a product or service. How are you going to solve that problem? And then that ends up coming down to your USP, which is unique selling proposition, which is another big term in brand strategy, is like, why people should care about you and why someone should buy from you specifically. So that first thing is figure out the key problem that you're solving. And I've also found, as a little side note, in networking and like pitching competitions and things, it's actually an interesting way to introduce what it is that you do. So that makes your introduction different. So it's like, I solve this, I help these people do this. And really identify, because you get in the head of people being like, oh, I get why I should care about that, because that's a problem that I face in my daily life. I love to juice, but I don't want to buy an expensive juicer, and I don't want to have to spend $11 and head out to Erewhon or whatever the New York press juicery. So you deliver juice to my house at a fraction of the cost. That's something I pay attention to, as an example. Number 2 is your target customer. So this is not a demographic. This is not an age range. This is not an assortment of people that might fit into something, but this is really one key person. Now, obviously, as you grow and scale, there's going to be all different types of people, hopefully, that are going to be attracted to your product, but they're going to all have kind of some key things and overlaps. But before you get there, you want to identify who this person is, who they are, where they live, key things, how do they spend their money, and where do they get their information for purchase decisions, and what do they perceive whatever you're offering. So really getting the minds of like, how does this person make a decision? Who do they ask? Like if they're comparing a few different products and things, like what is the way in which they get to the actual point of sale and they commit, and how to change their purchase behavior, and where do they get their news? Where do they hang out online? Where do they hang out in real life? And get a sense of really who they are. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the messaging, the comms plan. Basically, how are you going to reach these people? So you've identified the problem, you identified who they are. Now, how are you going to actually reach these people? So the way you create like a symbiotic relationship between the 3 is determining and building campaigns. And a group of, and this is into the marketing, and the foundation obviously is the branding. So a group of campaigns is a program for a specific goal. So maybe you're launching a new product. Maybe you're launching the company itself. Maybe you have a special offer, a discount, or sale, a limited time piece, or a different color announcement. So this is where that marketing operations comes into play. And it's really just an idea if you don't have a plan to execute. So just to review for that second myth, a brand is what you, or the secret is branding is the inside out process, and you can't build a brand without these 3 things. That's the key problem you're solving. That's the target customer. And that's then the messaging in the comms plan to serve as the core of like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're going to, this is who we're serving. That's the problem that we solve. And this is how we're going to tell people about who we are. And this is where you can invest to see the biggest impact in revenue growth. Let's see. Myth number 3, branding and customer acquisition are 2 different things. So I hear this a lot when people come to me and say, okay, so do you do like digital marketing and like growth hacking and like SEO, and like I would need to run, are you like adapting Google AdWords, and we need to run like Facebook ads, and or maybe I'm thinking about hiring somebody for sales and doing cold outreach, and like we need to convert. So the secret is that your brand is actually a huge component, if not the beginning component of your customer acquisition strategy. And a great way I like to explain this is like with dating. So let's say you're a badass businesswoman, like all of you are, and you decide to wear like camo pants and hiking boots and like a big bucket hat to a date. And you show up at this really nice cocktail lounge, and there's a man sitting across the table, and maybe he's got this sharp suit on, and he's well-spoken, he's successful, and he's gonna look at you and be like, I don't think that that's I don't think that that's what I'm looking for. But in the inside, you're like, no, I'm the baddest businesswoman. We also share a lot of the same things. Oh, we went to the same, business school, or we grew up in the same area, or our, families grew up vacationing in the same place, or whatever it is that that you have these connections where you're like, I should be the person that he's choosing. But he's looking at you like, well, I don't know if this is my gal, because she doesn't really look like we're into the same types of stuff. So 2 things are going to happen if you go out on this date and you're dressed incorrectly. You're going to be out of integrity with yourself because you're not going to attract the right people, right? So you may then attract somebody else, guy who looks like he hunts and fishes and things. You're going to sit down to dinner and you're actually going to have nothing in common. And he's going to be kind of confused because he's going to be like, well, she looks like she's outdoorsy and likes the same activities, and we have similar hobbies, but something's not driving here. We don't end up having anything in common. And so you're going to have unhappy customers because they're going to be like, wait, this isn't what I thought I was getting. So you're either going to attract the wrong people, and you're going to dissuade the people that you're like, wait, I think that was my soulmate. And he leaves before dessert. So as you can see, like, your brand can actually make or break your customer acquisition strategy. You can run ads all day, you can growth hack, you can do all the digital marketing things, which are super important. Those come later with actually activating your marketing programs. But if you don't have the brand dialed, then you're kind of just going to be communicating the wrong message to the wrong people. So it's important that you have this dialed in. So you wear that right outfit. So you wear that, I don't know, fun pair of pants and a top or dress, and you show up to the date with the man in the suit, if that's your dude, and then you guys connect. So the brand needs to be aligned with your values, what you stand for, and what you're here to solve. And I think people are like, oh, the myth of like the brand story, and not the myth, the cliche, like, oh, it's a brand story and what's our why and what's our value. And it's like, well, we're only selling this. We don't have this big altruistic mission, but you can still get down to the core of what it is that you're looking to solve. And I think it probably resonates with a lot of you as early stage founders, is there's a reason why you decided to start your company. Maybe there's a really personal genesis story of a product that you wish that you had, that you decided to create. Or a problem that you identified in the market. But we all have a why and a beginning. And so to start there and build your brand strategy based on those values. So you're wearing the right outfit to that date and your customers and you are sitting across the proverbial business table and you guys are connecting in the right way. Myth number 4 is, in order for my brand to scale, it needs to appeal to the masses. So this is another one I see. We're like, well, what if people don't like that? And I'm worried about being edgy, or what if, I make a statement here or there. Your brand and business will grow intentionally if you turn people off, because it's really about speaking who you are. It's like turning that dial to the frequency where they are vibrating, to get a little hippy dippy, because I used to live in Venice, okay? But otherwise, it would be like on a radio if you're turning into all the stations at once. So you really only want to attract the people that are ready to listen. And you want to be able to be that frequency that people are like, I get what you're about. Again, back to the outfit example, even if you're not super into fashion, it is the core way that we as humans brand ourselves without ever speaking to anybody. When you're walking down the street, you can look at people and you could probably guess maybe what they do for a living, maybe the neighborhood they live in New York, their socioeconomic status. You can say a lot about how people are, and you can think about your brand, at least the visual component, as that piece. And you really want to attract the people who are looking for the station like yours. Because if it's unclear, it's going to come out as static, like in and out, and you want to make sure that if you're country music, you live and breathe that vibe. So the people who want to listen to Cardi B, maybe those just aren't your people. Or the people who want the mariachi music, like, everybody's got to find their station and their product. And especially with technology and the internet, I mean, we have at our fingertips, we have these smartphones where we can access absolutely anything. There are, 10 different types of toothpaste. There are hundreds of different types of shoe brands. There are, so how are you going to stick out in that crowd? And it's just getting really, really clear on where it is that you stand in this process. The other thing I wanted to say is this is how you create like that cult following, because you'll appeal so acutely to one specific group of people that they are going to choose you, whether or not it's not going to be on features. It's going to be that emotional connection. And another thing I wanted to offer about brand is that I was recently at an entrepreneur summit, and there were some top VC people who were saying this that really affirmed this. I was like, yes, I'm on the right track. So they were talking about how brand is king, because with the emergence of AI and automation, a lot of products are really going to be commoditized, and it's going to be a race to the bottom of how much cheaper you can make something and how much quicker you can get it to somebody else. So if you can differentiate on brand and be something that people can't, it's like, I don't care if you're cheaper. I don't care if you come to my house quicker or you're easier to get. I want this product because of some emotional, visceral connection. That's where that branding sweet spot will happen. And they said that's going to be huge, especially in the next few decades of business. And those, proximity and all the old, 4 Ps of marketing shift, because proximity and price will be something that everybody can kind of compete on. So those are the 4 myths and secrets. And my way that I help clients answer these problems, and what I want to share with you as my experience of working on different things, is this is how I help people avoid these mistakes and help build a brand that lasts. So my 3-step method that I'm going to share with you like mini today, and my hope is that you can take this and translate it into some things right today for your business, is called the STRUC method. So if you follow this process, you will be guaranteed to create a high impact, authentic brand. And it's how you bring that brand strategy and that powerful vision to life. And I guarantee you, like, things will click and shift with how kind of all these components fit together. So this method I created after, so I've been independently consulting for 5 years, and it's a way that I have found to be the best for early stage founders who are like, well, I'm not sure where to invest the time, and I don't know if I have the time. And we've talked to other consultants, or we've done brand assessments, or we've done mission and vision exercises, or we've built a buyer avatar, and so what? I don't know what to do with it. So what this does is address all of those concerns and then get you actionable steps right away. So it's kind of built on a traditional consulting model, if any of you come from consulting or have worked with big consulting agencies, but it's just ASE, so assessment, strategy, execution. The assessment is just a fancy word for, analyzing, just looking under the hood and figuring out, okay, what's working, what's not working, what have we built so far? This is sort of like the place where we look backwards. And especially when you bring on new people, so if you're hiring a marketing coordinator, or you're bringing on a PR partner, or you've decided to bring on maybe someone in sales, anybody that's going to be externally representing your brand or building anything that will then live externally, this is a really great place to be able to share with them the assessment that you've done, and gets everybody just on the same page. And this does not have to be like a 3 or 6 month process where you're sitting in a room with a whiteboard and analysis paralysis. But yeah, just a good little benchmark. The second piece is the strategy phase, just where you actually plan it out. So you set small, smart goals and objectives, and you're like, well, what am I trying to achieve in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year? Where are we really trying to go? And I suggest that you really want to look at this not just well, we want to make more money. We want to increase revenue by X. Sure, that's going to be everybody's goal. But thinking about more about intangibles, like, well, we'd like to partner with these brands, or we'd like to be featured in these publications, or I'd like to be speaking on these stages, or whatever the nature of your business is, coming up with some other goals in the business that you can actually kind of create programs and things around that will move the business farther along, not just on a financial scale. You can absolutely include financial scales and metrics and things. But yeah, goals are different than like a KPI type of thing, right? So once you have this planned out, then you want to move to execution. So this is where you're actually going to figure out, all right, we know where we've been, we know what we want to do. Now, how do we assemble the right team or the people internally to own these different initiatives? And how do we manage the flow of information to bring this to life? And that's really where the operational optimizations come in. And you'd be surprised, if any of you like come from an agency background, like how disorganized things are, even at these big gilded firms and big brands of people. You know, they maybe use Slack and they have email automation and all these things that you need for a robust marketing department, but the little things really do matter. And so just being really mindful of like, okay, who's going to own this project, and how are we going to bring it to life, and how are we going to collaborate in this way, and how are we going to project manage, and how are we going to manage the content here, and how often are we going to post on social, and what channels are we going to do, and who's going to own what, really makes a difference. If you want to talk about speed, you can sprint forward. If you do planning right and you do the operational optimizations right, you won't be worried about, oh, we spent a few weeks planning, because you'll just be moving forward at lightning speed. So basically, I think it comes down to you're kind of faced with an opportunity in a sense of, you can continue to build things the way that you've always built them. And you probably have different expertise that you're drawing on, and you're like, well, I can kind of figure it out and I can kind of chop it together. And I've got like, you know, this PR partner that works really well. And I have somebody that's going to do Google AdWords, and like, okay, I have, you know, I've developed some like partnerships, or I've gotten some organic press, and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of trucking along. But you're never going to get that big growth, like leap and synergy with all of these pieces until you sit down and build the strategy. And you can include those partners in this process, or you can build it yourself and then disseminate that information. But I guarantee you, everybody will collaborate better, and you'll have a better sense internally and externally of where you're going and who you are if you spend the time to build this. So those are kind of like the myths and things that I see with, and the secrets for brand strategy, brand planning, why it's important, why I think it's the foundation of marketing. What are some key things that you can do for your business now that can help align for you and hopefully create some impact? So I don't know if I spoke fast or slow, but I hope that was helpful. I would love to open it up for questions now. If you guys want to pop anything specific into the chat, I'm happy to do even like sort of like live analysis of things. If you have like a specific problem or hiccup in the business, or something that you want to share that relates, I am happy to chat with you now. If you want to pop in there, or if you need any clarifications on any section that I went through. Let's see. Optimizational tools. Yes. So I think building your tech stack will really depend on what your business is. Tamara, let me see here. What did you say was your D2C fashion company? Sustainable staples. Cool. Okay. I think, yeah, it'll depend on what the needs are of the business in terms of the like marketing campaigns. So for an e-commerce business, you're going to want wherever your website is hosted playing really nice with whatever email distribution client. So like, I know Shopify plays really nice with Klaviyo. So looking at platforms that are already built to play nice in the sandbox, you can always build things on Zapier, but that's like one place to start. It sounds really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people are picking things with popsicle sticks and glue, and it kind of makes their brand strategy messy, because even if you decide on kind of like this ethos of who you are, and then you're like, okay, well, how do I put that into action, into marketing programs? Things don't go out on time and things aren't really coordinated. I would also say, if you're not using Slack is I think the best tool that's ever been created for internal communications to segment conversations. Choosing a project management tool that you can start to assign people to own things from start to finish. So I think a lot of times with small companies, they do the relay method, where it's like, the Model T, where it's like, okay, well, I do the wheel and you do the door and you do the steering wheel, and then somebody else does the windows. When you have a small team, or you're having to move really quickly, even if you guys collaborate really, really well, that will slow you down. So hiring people that you can empower from like a management perspective to own something from start to finish, and then collaborate in the full pieces. So like, okay, let's create a fleet of cars together, and each person's like creating that, I've actually found will help you go quicker. So finding a project management tool that you think can support that. I currently use Monday.com. I switched from Asana last fall, and I've never looked back. It's a Gantt chart, so you can see different progress, and it will take some tweaking to kind of build it out for you, but that's my favorite project management tool in terms of tasks. And I look at things weekly. So kicking off the week on a Monday with a call, and wrapping up the week on a Friday with a call. Even if you have a team of just a few people and you guys are working alongside each other, if you segment the times to chat with your team at the beginning of the week and the end of the week, it actually makes people a little bit more disciplined to how much information they're sharing with you, because sometimes it's sort of like on a need to know basis, and everyone knows everything all the time, and then everyone's sort of like collaborating around a table. Whereas I think sometimes working independently on specific initiatives in the business will help you go quicker and faster. Building out campaigns and things. I love Later.com for social media. That's my favorite scheduling and posting platform. And it also works with Pinterest, which Planly does not currently. And it's a more affordable option than like a Sprout Social, which is almost like more of an agency platform. Let's see. Would you say the more niche, does that help, Tamara? Okay, awesome. Would you say the more niche you are when you launch, the better it is to build a cult following? Yes, I would. You know how they say like that old cliche, like if you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one. I would figure out really what it is that you stand for and that problem that you are solving, that you're like, this is an issue and here's what we're doing. Like, we have the razor that is like super unique, or we have these shoes that have this incredible insert that no one else is doing that helps with plantar fasciitis. And that's a big thing for not your grandmother, but for you, because you're a badass businesswoman and you were wearing pumps for 15 years or something. Like, you are figuring out exactly who that person is, who that core customer is. And so those people will be like, oh, I will stop everything. I need your product. Tell me, like, take my money now. So I would say start niche, and then you could always develop more buyer personas over time as you start to collect data on who these people are and who buys your product. Because especially if you have like an e-commerce business, you'll be collecting the metrics on the back end of your website and different like click-through rates, and you'll start to figure out who these people are. And you'll be like, wow, Des Moines, Iowa would have no idea. Like, maybe we need to do some sort of brand activation in Iowa. You know, you'll get these weird trends of people. I have a current client who, I'm from Colorado, and the company's based in New York. She's actually a D&D'er, the Kink Kit. People love the Kink Kit in the mountains of Colorado. She's like, are these people you know? And I'm like, I don't know. But Erie, Colorado has some of the biggest customer base, and we're not really sure why, but we're listening, right? And we're interpreting that information and trying to figure out like what to do with it. That also brings up a good point that I want to say is like, brand strategy is iterative. So I think a lot of times, you know, things are very like output based of like, okay, Once we find that perfect solution, this is who we are, and that's it. And then that section of the business is done. Sort of. I would say that once you develop this overall brand strategy, you can build on it, but things will evolve and change as the market shifts, as customers shift, as you encounter new possibilities and things. It'll be really, really interesting to see how things like evolve, and you have to be open to that. But if you have a really strong foundation to build off of, it will seem like an evolution as opposed to a pivot. Although that can happen as well sometimes when you feel like, okay, well, this is what we launched and this is the problem that we identified in the market, and here's who we've been, and we had great success, and we've been doing that for 40 years, as a family business, and now we're really looking to, it's 2019, what do we actually stand for anymore, and like, who are we selling to, and maybe we want to niche somewhere else. So it just kind of depends where you are in the life cycle. And you can almost think of that in the same way that like brand identity is like personal identity. Who you were when you were 19 is probably not who you are when you're 35. You're still the same person at your core, but your life experiences and things that you've learned will give you a different perspective, and you probably dress different, and maybe your hairstyle's different, how you want to spend your time and your hobbies and what's important to you will have evolved. And I think that you can think of that in terms of a business as well, because hopefully over time things do shift in a good way. But if you start with kind of these key pieces, you'll really be on a good path. And if you follow if you want to borrow anything from the STRUC method, that assessment, strategy, execution, just to give you an example, when I create like a specific program for a client, like I have a retainer client right now where we're launching a new piece of the business, and we're doing the ASE method with just an hour-long strategy call. So it was like, okay, so what have you built in the past? Have you worked on this before? Great. What worked? And then we came up with a strategy, and then we decided that on the execution phase, who was going to own what within her organization and what I was going to own, and you were ready to go. But it keeps people kind of like, okay, got it. Here's what we're going to do. So you don't have to, but I would say at the beginning, if you can, the beauty of getting out of the same spaces in the routine, book yourself a breather, get yourself and your team or into a different space and a whiteboard, and start to plot out like the next year and do a little brand planning, and you'd be so surprised what comes of that, and where things will shift for you. And I think it also helps create clarity on what to do with the marketing. So people are like, okay, great. That's kind of part two, right? Like, brand, great. We know who we are. We know what problem we're solving. And then how do we bring this to life? Where do we invest in the right marketing programs? Okay, so do we do social media? Do we do influencers? Do we do event activations? Do we have a press push? Do we want some really key like email sequencing and funnel pieces? Or D, all of the above? And for how much time and how much to invest in those things? If you have kind of your core pieces, I think that that comes together. But yeah, that's kind of the relationship between the two. What else? Any other specific questions? Anything that you guys want to chat about? We ended a little early. I'm happy to answer anything specific that you might want to talk about. And also I wanted to offer too, I wanted to have like something for just our community. I am going to open up a few slots on my calendar just for people who are on the call today, and then I think we'll have Hannah put it in the original like event list or something like that. So people who are watching the replay, don't worry, you don't have to reach out. But I'll put a few spots on my calendar just for D&Ders, and I'm would love to hop on with any of you and give you like a free hour-long like mini strategy session, like do the assessment strategy execution, the STRUC method on a specific problem or anything that you have going on in your business. If there's anything specific from this call today that you're like, I want to do a deep dive, but I don't know if I want to do it in front of everybody. I'm more than happy to chat with you guys and like provide something to the community. So I'm going to put just my link to my calendar here in the chat, and then it'll also go out to everybody in, let's see here. Make sure this works here. And then if you guys have anything that you want to chat about, let's go to everyone. Make sure that works. Okay. So I had been offering these like hour-long calls. I was calling them like lightning rounds last fall because I had a lot of people who just kind of wanted to work out strategy, and they ended up being really impactful. And so anybody outside the D&D community, if you have anybody who's interested in that, I normally offer them at $150 an hour, but I am more than happy to chat with all you ladies in the community for free and work through anything that you're working through, because I so believe this community has been so impactful to me, and this is what I like geek out on. So please feel free to book time with me if you want. And also if you see me in the chats and comments and things on other posts, feel free to say hi. And if any of you are ever in LA, please hit me up. I live with another fellow D&Der, and we have a guest room in Santa Monica, and we're always happy to host people. I guess the weather's getting better for you guys now because it's April, but when those New York winters come over to the West Coast and hang out with us. So I guess if that's it, if nobody has any other specific questions, I hope this was helpful and I didn't talk too fast. And and feel free to ping me as well if you have anything else you wanted to chat about. But I'm really hoping that there were some specific things that you can take and apply to your business today, and it wasn't just conceptual. So thank you, everybody.